Hello everyone, welcome to Lucas' channel, and today we're going to talk about the foundation program.
My name is Aish, I'm one of the Foundation Year 1 doctors and I'm currently doing my rotation in psychiatry.
My name's Arjun, I'm one of the foundation doctors as well, and I'm currently in medicine.
I'm actually from Malaysia. I was an international medical student. I graduated from one of the universities in London.
This is complicated. I was born in the UK, but I moved out when I was young. We went to India. I grew up there for a little while, and then I went to the Middle East. And in Middle East, it was in Dubai, where I grew up most of my time.
I went to uni in University College London, UCL.
University of Leicester.
So essentially every final year medical student will rank deaneries within the UK. I think there are about 23 deaneries and these are like geographical locations. So for example, Wales is one deanery, Northern Ireland, Scotland, London. You've got the northwest of England, northeast of England, that kind of thing. So you kind of rank them. There's like 20 something deaneries. And from there, depending on how lucky you are, they try and allocate you your first choice. And it's done completely randomly. If you don't get your first choice, they will kind of move down your list of rankings and they will see which one you end up with. So a lot of people are generally very happy which geographical location they end up in. Some people do end up, unfortunately, in like the 20th choice. It's just the way it works. Once you are given your deanery, so for example, we're currently in the Yorkshire and Humber deanery, which is pretty massive. They then make you re-rank for your sub-deaneries. So for example, for us, we had South Yorkshire, which was Sheffield, West Yorkshire, which included Leeds, and then East Yorkshire, which is the biggest sub-deanery, which had York, Scarborough, Hull, Scunthorpe and Grimsby. And by a process of elimination, I ended up in East Yorkshire. I got my job slightly later than others because of some other complications that happened as well. But essentially you then, once you get your sub-deanery, they will release your job offers to you. They are released to you in the 6 rotations that you will be working in, and you kind of rank which set of 6 rotations you want at the top and which you want at the bottom. So once I got East Yorkshire, which wasn't my top choice sub-deanery, I actually wanted to be in West Yorkshire and specifically in Leeds. I kind of said whatever to my actual geographical location and I decided to rank by my rotations because I wanted a good set of rotations if I wasn't going to be where I wanted to be. And that's how I ended up in Scunthorpe, basically. Ranked my rotations that way and got what I wanted in terms of jobs, not what I wanted in terms of location, but it is what it is.
I wanted Northwest. It was similar to what Aish said. The way that the applications work was exactly the same. But my top ranking was Northwest because my partner lives there. Thought it'd make it easier when we were both doctors starting out, living close together. Unfortunately, I am not the sharpest tool in the shed. So back then, it based on your deciles, based on how you did well in your exams, and another thing called the SJT. I didn't do well in both of them. So I didn't really get much choice on where I needed to go. I was given Yorkshire, which was my second sort of choice. And there, again, same thing. I wanted Leeds, I wanted Sheffield. Didn't really want the East Yorkshire because it was too far from Manchester. But it is what it is, and I've got Scunthorpe in the end. Silver lining, I got the rotations sort of what I wanted. I wanted to avoid peds because I don't think I can work well with children. And I got psych, which is something I've always wanted to sort of try. And yeah, and I've been very blessed so far.
I'm actually really enjoying myself overall. It has its highs, it has its lows.
Yeah, I agree, to be fair. As the F1, generally there's a lot of responsibility that you never thought you'd have. There's a lot of people's lives in your hands, which can be quite daunting. But at the end of the day, it is the senior doctors who decide what they need to be doing, like what their sort of care goes, which direction the care goes in. So that's kind of reassuring because it's not ending with us. There's someone else there to sort of guide the way we treat patients.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was definitely thrown off the deep end with my first rotation in medicine, and I was definitely on call within my first week of being a doctor. And it was incredibly stressful. Nurses were not happy with me at the start. And it really does feel like all of these really sick patients are just in your hands, and if anything happens to them, it's your fault. But actually, even being in a small hospital that is can be quite severely understaffed sometimes, we have some very, very supportive seniors, and I think that's what's really helped. Having SHOs and registrars who, will take every opportunity to teach you and, kind of include you in procedures and make teaching opportunities out of yours and their mistakes has actually been really, really helpful. I think a lot of medical students now and young doctors now are very much in that position of not knowing if they want to stay in medicine, leave the country and do medicine elsewhere, or go do something else. I think I'm happy to say that even though the NHS is having its own issues and F1s are going through their own issues and stuff like that, I'm pretty happy with my position as a doctor right now, and I don't think there's anything else I'd currently rather be doing.
While she thinks about things, mine was actually last week, where I had to deal with a severely unwell patient who got stepped down from resus, which is probably one of the most intense areas in the hospital, period. So this patient was not really responding to me, and I did not know what was going on. So the nurses called me because they were worried, and I had to review him. The issue with is that we have something called news scores, which is basically a sort of judge based on patients' vitals and their sort of conscious states to see how well they're doing. This patient was not doing well. He was using a 13, which is quite high, and I had to review this patient by myself with no senior support, and I think that was probably the hardest thing that's happened to me in medicine. He was fine in the end. We treated as he went, but it's just one of those things where you really need a senior to come down, just at least for moral support, or just to say, yes, what you're doing is right. And I think that was quite difficult not having someone there.
I think one of the hardest days that I've worked as a doctor, which I still think about to this day, was just when I was on my medical ward back in, I think it would have been November time, and it was just myself, a foundation year 2, so a doctor 1 year my senior, and the ward registrar. So just the 3 of us on the ward taking care of about 26 patients. The consultants weren't on that day because it just wasn't a consultant ward round day / they were in clinics or bronchoscopy or something. And everyone decided to kick off and get really sick at the same time. So the F2 was dealing with someone who became newly peritonitic and needed an acidic drain. The registrar was off the ward attempting chest drains, I think, in PIU. I can't remember now, but they just went around. And one of the patients in the respiratory hobs area, which is the high observation unit, so they're a lot sicker, decided to go into new AF. And she could see her monitor and she could see that her own heart rate had gone up to 120, saw it, panicked massively. The heart rate went up to 140. And I looked at her and I thought she's just not doing okay. I think, looking at her news score, which is, her observational score, she was not doing very well at all, and she definitely needed registrar escalation. So I attempted to call my ward reg, but we couldn't get a hold of them because, they were doing procedures and whatnot. And I was really panicking at this point because I still just was not very comfortable with how to treat AF. Obviously, I know now that you could consider bisoprolol. At that point, I just thought she was too unwell, it wasn't going to work. And so I spoke to my next senior, who is this F2, who's a year above me, and we both decided to call the cardio reg on call, which was in hindsight probably way too high a step to take, but we needed some kind of senior support, and we got it. The cardio reg came on the ward, told us that let's load them up with the Joxin, and we did. And the patient was fine, and I think a big part of it was also she was very anxious about the heart rate. And so once we were like, hey, we're gonna throw some drugs at you, she was like, oh, calm. And then she calmed down and the AF kind of went away. But then my ward reg actually turned back up on the ward and got really upset with me for having jumped senior levels and having to call the cardiology specialist to come in and review. So I took a bit of a beating from that as well, but it's just the way it goes really. But I kind of still think about that patient because I was really stressed, and did a very shoddy A to E because I was really stressed about that. So it was a good learning point because now I can see an AF and not feel like crying. So
To be fair,
good.
that's probably what I would have done. I would have rather had help there and not need it than need help and have no one there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a tip for anyone who's trying to be a foundation doctor. If in doubt, always ask a senior. Most of the time they're very helpful. They'll try their best to teach you while helping your situation out.
There are no exams, but they do assess us via an online portfolio where we upload our achievements and certain sign-offs that we need. Arjun, do you want to take us away on that?
Yes, it's actually long. It's a very draining process because one, you're working in the hospital, you're doing the things that you're meant to be doing, but at the same time you need to upload it to our website, you need to get someone to approve it and sign it, which a lot of the consultants are not very tech friendly. Yes, more on things from Aish.
So at the start of the year and at the start of every rotation, you're assigned a supervisor. So in your first rotation, your supervisor will be your educational supervisor and your clinical supervisor all in one. Your educational supervisor will kind of look over your overall educational needs and how you're getting on throughout the year. So you keep the same person through all 3 rotations. And you meet with your educational supervisor at the start and at the end of every rotation. And then
so I'm just going to interrupt on that one, except if you're in GP. In GP, it works a bit differently. Because you're sort of in a completely different setting, you're in primary care, you're in a little practice on top of being in the hospital, your supervisors tend to change around, so disclaimer.
But and then at the end of the year, your educational supervisor will then do an end of year report to kind of close off your entire portfolio. In each rotation, you will be assigned a clinical supervisor who will just be looking over you throughout your rotation and kind of support your clinical needs and your clinical educational needs within that rotation itself. So when I started in respiratory, I had an educational supervisor and a clinical supervisor that was the same person. When I moved to ED, I had a new clinical supervisor, kept my old educational one, and now I'm in psych and I have my last clinical supervisor of my F1 rotation. So they will do reports, overarching reports. The next most important step of the portfolio are the SLEs, or the supervised learning events. So these are split into 3 things: the case-based discussion, CBD, the DOPS, which is the direct observation of procedural skill. That, and a mini KEX, which is just a mini examination. Okay, so the way the CBD works is you basically take a case that you've reviewed or been a part of the management for, and you kind of basically discuss this with the consultant or any kind of senior regarding, you know, the history, the clerking, the examinations, the management plan, diagnosis, investigations, kind of all about it, and you can get that signed off. The DOPS is any kind of procedure that you might do that you hopefully have not done as a medical student. So, you know, getting blood signed off is not really what they're kind of looking for here, but maybe difficult ABGs. I did a pleurodesis at some point. I know some people who've, you know, assisted with chest drains or acidic taps. So those all kind of fall under the level of a DOPS.
Yeah, and so then a DOPS can pretty much be anything.
Yeah.
If it's something that's not commonly done, like bloods, like you said, you could probably get signed off as DOPS. Even surgical scrubbing up, that's a DOP. Maybe even cleaning an area for surgery. As long as the surgeon's happy to sign you off for it, get it signed off as a DOP. So DOPS are one of those things where you could almost get it signed off for anything that's a bit different from what you normally would do. And
then finally, the mini KEX is just a direct observation of an examination. So realistically, I mean, ideally what you would have is your senior comes into the examination room with you and observes you do an examination. Cardiovascular, respiratory, could be some kind of orthopedic exam, it could be an MSc, like a mental state exam in psychiatry, so that's what I've been getting in my psych rotation. And then they will give you feedback on that and sign you off for it. With your SLEs, I think per rotation, what they kind of look for is 2 CBDs, 2 mini KEXs, and 1 DOPS on average per rotation. So at the end of the year, you should have 6 CBDs, 6 mini KEXs, and 3 DOPS, which is actually quite attainable. I won't lie. It's
you have
quite
4
easy.
months to do it per rotation. You got 6 things at max to get signed off as a minimum for your portfolio. But make sure you get it signed off as soon as possible, because towards the end of your year, when they start reviewing your portfolio, things can get stressful. You're going to have to get everything signed off. A lot of the sign-offs take time. And I think that's one of the things I'd learned from, my whole experience as an F1. Get your thing signed off as early as you can, so that later on you're not running about trying to get it signed. I feel great. I feel like I've learned a lot being in Scunthorpe. I've learned things that are kind of helpful as being a doctor. Sometimes you need to have the confidence, to say, this is what it is, this is what we're going to do. You can go home. I think that's the hard part of medicine, because everyone's so defensive. They're worried about the worst case scenario. But sometimes staying in hospital is actually worse than sending someone home. And I feel like that's something I've learned in Scunthorpe, and I'm pretty excited to use it.
I think I was really apprehensive actually going into foundation year 1, especially in a very small hospital in an area of England that I'm not very used to at all. I do think I've learned a lot in my year here though. I kind of, like I said, started off in the deep end with medicine, and I think that really, really helped build a spine for me and my work as a clinician. And I think I'm a lot better with my diagnoses and my investigations, and I'm a lot more confident speaking to patients and having really difficult conversations as well. I've learned so much from a lot of my seniors. I have a lot of, quite a few role models actually to look up to, which I think is also really important, not him. It's really important. And I think the best part for me is that I really enjoyed all of my rotations. And I'm actually very excited for my rotations next year, because those were the ones that I was kind of very much aiming for. And I think it'll be really great having just a bit more responsibility as well. I think they are, like, I'm going into peds and ICU, and those are very specialist rotations, but I think I can take everything that I've learned from my previous rotations in F1 and, have that new confidence and kind of go into that, and hit the ground running with it. So.
Yeah, all in all, I think no matter how stressful it can be, no matter how busy, it feels like it takes up most of your life, because it is a job at the end of the day. I know everyone's graduating from university thinking, oh, it should be exactly like placement. It really isn't. The hours take a toll on you. But at the end of the day, it's rewarding. I feel the satisfaction of, seeing a patient, getting them sorted, and then, and coming back home to do whatever you normally do.
Pepe's.
Pepe's, yes. Pepe's. Shout out Pepe's. Ooh, that's actually a really good question, because we're both international and multicultural. Yes, alright, actually. A lot of people in Scunthorpe are from around the world, surprisingly. Because it's such a small little hospital, you wouldn't expect there to be people from literally anywhere. You're the first Honduran person I've met, and I've never met anyone from Latin America before. So that's a new sort of shift in what I think DGHs are. But as an international doctor from, coming from a different country, I've never felt that different to anyone else being there. I've always felt welcomed and integrated into the team. I get invited to do loads of things that normally the locals would do, and that's great.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different for us, I guess, because we both were here for medical school as well. So I'm like leading up to my 9th year of living in the UK, and you're
One
on.
more year and she gets ILR.
No, I don't.
Okay.
And you're on number 6, aren't you? So
Yeah.
And obviously you can tell by our voices that we've very much assimilated into the culture.
Yeah.
But I do think, from what I've seen from the IMGs who've come here for the first time, I think, because this DGH has quite a big international graduate population, that there is a big sense of community and making sure everyone's comfortable with where they are and, getting used to it. But I also think that is the case in many, many hospitals in the UK, especially in the DGHs. And even with teaching hospitals, they're so large that you will find your community in there anyway. I think within the NHS, there is a good sense of community.
There might be a few hospitals where you might feel left out, because you might be the only doctor of, let's say, from the international background. However, from what I've heard, I've got a few friends like that, and they have said that it's basically on how you take it. Some comments can be, towards your race, towards your identity, but it's basically on how you react to it rather than what they say. At the end of the day, it's hard to change other people's opinions about you, but it's easier to change on how you react to them. So that's one of the tips I would tell anyone.
I actually think the main culture shock for IMGs when they start working here is actually just how the NHS works in terms of the kind of care we provide for the patients and how the hierarchy works within teams. It is very much patients-led care. A patient is not to say the boss, but you have to take them seriously in terms of like the holistic views and how you care for them. And also working within your teams, I know, coming from my background in Malaysia, doctors are very much at the top of the hierarchy and then followed by nurses and other staff. Whereas here we work very much in tandem and together with nurses, physios, other auxiliary staff. And there is no kind of such thing as, doctors are the boss. And I think where people kind of find it difficult is when they kind of come in with a bit of that attitude and the nurses just absolutely won't take it. And I think the first thing you need to do is make friends with the nurses.
I would recommend. They are your biggest allies in the hospital. They make your life so much easier, but at the same time, if you cross them, it makes it so much more difficult. So tip, be friends with your nurses.
But also once people get used to that, they're so fine.
Yeah. Another culture shock is everything closes so early. Why does it have to close at 6 p.m. on a Sunday? Why?
Question for another day.
Well, my advice for future foundation doctors would be do the best you can. That's all you can do, and that's all that we need. Try your best to be a safe doctor, be compassionate, be yourself, and if you've got any issues, don't forget to raise it to people. So if you've got an issue with staff, make sure you raise it to your supervisors. Or sometimes you could raise it directly to them, but that's always a bit awkward, isn't it?
And not everyone is going to get their first choice location and their first choice hospital. I think that, there is going to be an element for many people, disappointment and being worried and being scared about starting. But I think we can both say, Scunthorpe was not our first choice and we've had a pretty good run of it. You will find your community, you will find your mentors, and I think the important thing is to make the most of what you've got. A small hospital gives you opportunities to really get hands-on on things. So get on top of that. Find opportunities for, other achievements and stuff wherever you can. Find something that you're passionate about and kind of, focus on that. And you will make the most of it.
Make a good set of friends as well. And I'm going to miss Scunthorpe, I think, when I move to Hull. Not as a city, not or a town, whatever it is, but I'm going to miss the hospital.
I'm only really on Instagram. My handle is _vanilla_Aish_.
Well, I might be starting a YouTube channel soon. I'll put the link down when it's done. Luca, please edit it in. It's going to be somewhere, maybe there. I don't know. Ooh, there. Yeah, that's going to be me. So keep in touch, I guess.
Thank you for watching the videos, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment below. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. We'll see you soon in the next video in A Doctor's Journey. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we have a special guest with us called Aish.
It's so lovely to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
I never really did. She just showed up outside my house. Tonight, the light, let it shine. Just on in the night, like the 4th of July.
Get the mic close to you.
You're a firework. Can we talk about peppers? Can we do a whole segment on peppers?
What was your highlight of F1?
Yes, I had Pepe's every week every week for the last 5 years. I had Pepe's once, at least. Hola amigos, my name's Arjun.
Hola amigos, bienvenidos al canal de Luca.